everyone. If you're joining me live, do drop a live in the comments so that I know that you're here. And if you are watching the replay, comment replay so that I know that you've watched this, and hopefully you get a lot of value out of this. Now, today we're talking all things fat loss, but specifically sleep, and sleep as kind of the secret weapon for fat loss. Okay, sleep's super important, and yeah, I think this training is going to be really eye-opening for a lot of you. I am definitely someone that used to disregard my sleep, and I thought you can sleep when you're dead, and I was very great at burning the candle at both ends, and then wondering why I wasn't getting anywhere as far as my physique goals went. And yeah, sleep was actually a massive piece of that puzzle that I hadn't quite fit together. So it's my hope that teaching you this today, this is information and education that can stick with you, and you can relate somewhere along the way in this workshop. And yeah, you take something away from it. That is really always the key. So let's go ahead and get into it. Gonna bring up my slide, and then we can jump in. So so many buttons to click. Here we go. Share. Awesome. Cool. So like I said, welcome to this training on sleep, the secret weapon for fat loss. And I don't say that lightly. It really is. So today what we're going to be focusing on is really the connection between sleep and fat loss, consequences of poor sleep, female hormones specifically, and sleep, and strategies for improving sleep. Now, if you are not a female and you're watching this, that's all good. You're still going to be able to take away a lot from this, but there is a section at the end where we talk specifically about how this impacts females, particularly menstruating females. All right, so strap in. This is going to be very helpful, very educational, and we are going to be focusing on really the biggest key takeaways from your sleep. I don't want to overwhelm you with the science. I don't want to overwhelm you with like the stuff you just don't need to know. At the end of the day, it's my hope that this training is really practical, and you can implement it straight away and start seeing results, because we're all about quick action, and we're all about quick results, not in the way of like rushing and, you know, fads, but immediately feeling better. Right? There are so many quick wins that you can actually get under your belt when it comes to your fat loss journey. And this is for sure one of them. So why are we talking about this today? Basically, when you're on a fat loss journey, it'll get thrown at you from all sorts of angles that it is just calories in and calories out. And listen, to a degree, yes, but there is a lot that goes into the influence of said calories in and calories out, right? So I think it's safe to say that actually weight loss is more than just calories in, calories out, because there's so many influential factors that don't really get taken into consideration when we simplify things like that, right? And so the notion that simply restricting calories is going to lead to long-term weight loss, it's not wrong, but it's also not correct, okay? So the simplification of weight loss and saying, oh, it's just about calories in versus calories out, this really fails to actually consider that your body's pretty complex, and there's a lot of systems and complex workings that go into the energy balance and its role in weight gain and weight loss, right? And beyond the numbers of calories that you're going to take in, or a person takes in, your hormonal response, and in particular your insulin response to the types and the timing of food that you consume, is absolutely going to help determine the efficiency of which you're digesting food, and whether it's processed well, and whether it's stored as fat or used as energy. Okay, so when we're looking at this graph in particular, this is what I focus on with my one-on-one nutrition clients. Obviously, nutrition's a big piece of that, but it's not as simple as just going, here's your nutrition protocol, good luck, right? It's understanding you as a person. It's understanding that you are also a complex being, and that there are so many factors in your life that are influencing the results that you're going to see or not see, right? And so what we do is we focus on the big rocks, because again, we're all about efficiency. We're focusing on what actually matters. I don't want you bogged down in the science. I don't want you bogged down in the minutia. I want you really understanding your body, understanding why we do things the way that we do, and focusing on what's really going to move the needle. right? And so that is obviously nutrition, a big piece of it. But then your TDEE, so that is your total daily energy expenditure, aka how many calories you burn in a day. Then we've got sleep, stress management, and your mindset. These are the big rocks that are going to make a really big difference on your journey, right? And so understanding all of these pieces of the puzzle, per se, is going to help you to see better results, but also sustain them for longer, right? Which ideally is forever. Now, I'm just making sure no one is commenting as I am live. Okay. So you can see that sleep is a piece of this puzzle, right? It's definitely in there for a reason, and it's not like a small piece of the puzzle. It's quite a chunk. Okay. Now these percentages, they're just rough percentages, but really when it comes to your journey, strength and nutrition are just one piece. Actually focusing on your lifestyle is going to make a really big difference because it's going to impact your nutrition and your training, which we're going to talk about. So when it comes to sleep, right, the connection between sleep and fat loss specifically, okay, we're not talking about performance, we're not talking about any other influence that sleep has, but rather on your actual fat loss, your sleep's going to impact so many things. It's going to impact whether or not you're a good decision maker. It's going to impact your cognitive function. Can you think, right? It's going to impact your digestion. You got proper digestion. And then, yeah, it is going to impact things like your performance and your moods and all these other great things that come with being a well-rested, well-looked after human being. And these are all highly and very heavily dependent on getting a good quality sleep. So sleep is linked to several hormonal and metabolic processes, right? It keeps our overall metabolism in a state of balance or homeostasis. And our body is always trying to stay in balance. So how well you sleep and the numbers of hours that you actually spend asleep can alter so many things within your physiology and also your mentality. So from a physiological standpoint, we can see our hormones get altered, our appetite gets altered, the energy that we have throughout the day. Obviously, if we're fatigued, we're not going to have high energy. And then also just, again, our ability to maintain or lose weight. And when you don't get enough sleep or you have a sleep disorder such as, say, sleep apnea, it can really throw your metabolism off kilter and it can lead to weight gain. And then it can even lead to chronic illness, right? We're talking insulin resistance, diabetes, not great stuff for our health. So even if calories are controlled, sleep can impact the results that you see, okay? Now, I encourage you to drop a comment right now. How many hours of sleep do you usually get? There was a 2019 study that was performed in New Zealand, and it showed that 37% of Kiwi adults reported getting less than 7 hours of sleep. That's a big chunk. There were a few people, I think it was something like 5 to, I think it was like less than 10% of people said that they get more than 7 hours, more than 8 hours, like they were sleeping a long time. And that also had negative effects, but we're not talking about that today. We're talking about lack of sleep and poor sleep quality. So drop a comment. How many hours of sleep do you get on average? Let me know. And is it good quality sleep? Give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Now, the consequences of poor sleep. I've already mentioned a few things, right? But when we're thinking about why sleep is so important to your fat loss journey and to your overall health, it's because if we don't get enough good sleep, we are going to gain weight, right? Our body's going to store fat. We're going to see a decrease in our cognitive function. We're not going to be able to think clearly. Our appetite and our cravings are going to go up. Our energy expenditure is going to go down, right? So we're not moving as much throughout the day. Maybe we're too tired to get our workout in. Your high blood sugar levels, and this can lead to mood swings and again, cravings. Mood swings is there as well. And then poor recovery and ability to build muscle, which is no bueno. If we are trying to really body recomp, we're trying to build muscle and decrease body fat, your body is going to struggle. If it's not getting proper recovery and rest, then it's not going to be able to come back stronger. Okay, so there's a lot of consequences to getting poor sleep. Now, let's get into some of the reasons as to why sleep impacts our fat loss journey. And it would be, yeah, not great if I skipped past like the physiological things. Even though I said I don't want to bog you down in the science, we are going to touch on what is actually happening inside our body, right? And there's three main things that you need to be aware of here, and that is glucose, insulin, and your metabolism. Okay, so sleep duration influences our metabolism, particularly our glucose, which is our sugar metabolism. When food is eaten, we release insulin. Our body releases this hormone called insulin, and that helps to process the glucose that's in our blood. However, when we lose sleep, this impairs our body's response to insulin. It reduces its ability to uptake glucose. So its job is to shuttle glucose around the body so that we've got energy. But when we're not getting enough sleep, our body isn't responding. It's not online as well as it could be. And insulin doesn't uptake glucose as much. Now, we may be able to recover from the occasional poor night of sleep, but in the long term, this is going to lead to some pretty serious health conditions, like we mentioned: obesity, type 2 diabetes, insulin resistance. And you can see here in this graph that there is a few things that actually, happen. Insufficient sleep leads to overtired fat cells. We need more insulin. We've got increased blood sugar levels, and then we've got stress hormones being released. Basically, our body works against us, even though, like I said at the beginning, we're controlling our calories. Our body's just not firing on all cylinders. And I invite you to consider that you're a Lamborghini, and if you're not getting enough sleep, it's like chucking 91 in a Lamborghini. You're just not running as well as you could be. Cool. This kind of shows what I was just talking about as well. Like I say, don't want to bog you down in the science, but I find visually that it helps to see actually what's going on. So we can see that our changes in appetite, our nervous system is more in the sympathetic region, meaning that we're like wired. And then we have cortisol, growth hormone, and these counter-regulatory hormones that are going against what we're actually trying to achieve. And then inflammation goes up. And this can lead to fat storage, obesity, insulin resistance, and then eventually type 2 diabetes. Now, how does sleep impact our appetite and our cravings? And if you've got any questions along the way, drop them in the comments below. Happy to answer. I think this is quite a big topic. I'm trying to make it as simple as possible, but it's a lot to get your head around sometimes. So if that is the case, drop your questions below. I'm happy to answer. But yeah, we've got appetite and cravings. These are also impacted by our sleep. Now, is anyone familiar with the term ghrelin or leptin? If you are, drop a yes in the chat. And if you're not, that's cool. You're going to learn about them now. Super simple, right? These are two hormones that help to control or regulate our appetite. So a good night's rest, good amount of sleep, good quality sleep is going to help to promote the healthy production of these two hormones. And these two hormones, ghrelin and leptin, they regulate our appetite. They help us to know when we're hungry, and they help us to know when we're full. So leptin is a peptide hormone, and that regulates our body's energy balance by basically hindering feelings of hunger and regulating fat storage. Ghrelin is a hormone that's secreted in our stomach, and that acts as a counterpart to leptin. So it boosts appetite. When ghrelin goes up, we feel hungry, right? And it also helps with the growth and fat production. Now, if we don't get a good sleep, this can cause us to feel hungrier during the day because we have an imbalance of ghrelin and leptin. Again, they're not operating as they could be. And this imbalance caused by a crap sleep may lead to higher calorie intake during the day. So yes, we always come back to calories, but what's impacting that? What's impacting those decisions? And you can see here that if your ghrelin is up, you're constantly hungry, and your leptin is down, meaning your body's not telling you you're full, you're going to continue to eat. And it's really difficult to stick to a nutrition protocol when you're constantly hungry. Now, studies have also shown that we actually tend to crave more carbs than protein or fat when we're sleep deprived. And that can contribute to poor metabolism of food that we spoke about earlier with the role of glucose and insulin. Carbohydrates break down into glucose, and then insulin uptakes that and shuttles it around the body. But if we are having nothing but carbs, right, our body is just going into overload. Our blood sugar's through the roof, and we're not able to properly metabolize that food. And then we start to store it as fat, right? If you've ever had a craving because of a poor night of sleep, you notice you don't tend to go for like the healthy options. You go for something that's quick and convenient. And, you know, there's a reason why hash browns are like always sold out on a Saturday morning or a Sunday morning. You go out, you hit the piss, you're in the town, and you're like way underslept. And so all you want is carbs, right? It's not you. You're not the problem. It's just, this is our body's response. And when we can start to understand our bodies, we can start to work with our bodies rather than against it. In the first place is clearly getting a good night's sleep. Now, there is also the obvious factor when we're underslept that we're going to be fatigued. And how does this impact our fat loss? Well, for one, when you're fatigued, you are way less likely to go and work out. I have seen it before in my clients. I've experienced myself. When we're tired, the last thing we want to go do is push ourselves, exert ourselves, show up to the gym and go hard, right? You're too tired. Fatigue is a real, what's the word I'm looking for here? It's a really valid feeling. It's like a valid reason to not go and move. What we want to do is mitigate that fatigue. We want to be energized. We want to be full tanks, right? Not leaking energy, not leaking sleep out of our lives so that we're not able to show up and do the things that we're supposed to do. But naturally, yeah, when you're underslept, you're going to be tired. And so you're not maybe going to show up to the gym, or you're just not going to go for a walk, and you're naturally going to sit more and you're not going to move as much. Or on the other hand, say you do go to the gym, the chances of you giving it beams and giving it your all, pretty unlikely, right? You're not going to get the most out of that training session. And when we show up to our training, our goal is to improve. Our goal is to stimulate enough change, right? We want to be stimulating the muscles. We want to be stimulating our cardiovascular system so that we're either getting fitter or we're getting stronger. Ideally, we're getting both. But if we're not putting in the effort that's required to stimulate that change, we're not going to see those results. And then you've just added more stress to your body when you were already run down. And this is a big reason why I actually stopped getting up at like 5 a.m. and going and doing my workouts. Now, if you are someone that's the only opportunity you have in your day to go and work out, I absolutely understand. What is important though, is that you set up your sleep time schedule appropriately. So you're not going to bed at say 10 p.m. and waking up at 5. You're going to bed at 9 and waking up at 5, right? You're not burning the candle at both ends like I used to do a lot. I used to feel so down on myself if I skipped a workout. I was such a morning bunny, and I was genuinely doing all of the wrong things. I was skipping my sleep. I wasn't eating before I worked out. I was then having coffee on an empty stomach. Like, you could not have been more of a basket case internally than I was. And this is why I really drill home that we've got to cut the HIIT. We've got to cut that high intensity interval training out of our mornings, especially if you're not eating before, especially if you're not getting enough sleep, right? Once or twice a week is cool. Every day, you're going to be gaining weight. And so you're putting in all this effort and not getting anything out, right? Now, aside from that, we'll park that, double click on the fatigue and the energy expenditure. There's also the simple fact that when you're awake for longer, you have more opportunity to eat. And if you have more opportunity to eat, the chances are you're going to overeat and your overall calorie intake is going to be higher. So we can see how everything kind of bleeds in. And this is what we talk about. This is what we mean when we talk about things being holistic, like looking at your sleep schedule, looking at your lifestyle, looking at how often you're working out. What are those trainings consisting of? How are you feeling outside of your workouts, right? Are you a full tank? Or are you running on empty? And then how can we change things so that we're filling up that tank and we're putting in the most premium fuel? We're giving that Lamborghini the best service that we possibly can. Those are things to look at. So how do we actually improve our sleep? Now, You ladies are smart. I am sure that you can think off the top of your head of some way, shape, or form you can improve your sleep quality or quantity, right? Ideally both. And so the first step is that we actually need to address, like, how much sleep am I getting? Actually time it, see, am I getting enough sleep? When I wake up, how do I feel? Like, subjectively, if I had to rate my body battery, I've been plugged in, I'm on charge. How do I feel this morning? Am I like 100%? Am I charged up? Am I like 60%? Or am I like 30%? Like, have that ability to subjectively tune in, check in with your body, see how charged up you are. I call that your body battery. Okay, so timing your sleep, that's your quantitative, and then we've got your body battery, which is more of a qualitative aspect. All right, the first place to start, obviously, is going to be actually sticking to a schedule. We want to get a circadian rhythm into a rhythm. That means going to bed at the same time, waking up at the same time. And if we've worked out that we need about 7 hours, 7.5 hours of sleep, great. Reverse engineer. What time do you have to be up for work? What do you have to do before work? Do you have kids? Is that your gym time? What do we need to factor in there? And then how can we space it on the back end of the day so that you're getting that sleep, right? It's also really important to actually set up your environment for sleep. I had a past client, she used to do a turn down service, and I thought it was so cool. It was like her way of practicing self-care, where, you know, when you go to a hotel and they do this turn down service for you, and they fold back the blanket and they put like a little chocolate on the pillow and they dim the lights, and it's so relaxing. She used to do this for herself, and it was really impactful. Like, when she did her turn down routine, she felt, put that on silent, she felt like she was having a really good sleep. Like, she was in a really good spot to be able to wind down for the night and get into her nighttime routine. And it was just a really nice, like, habit cue. Dimming the lights, maybe putting a candle on, something to think about. Have an environment that you want to sleep in. It may seem really obvious, but we don't do it enough. So focusing on that. Another big tip is also to reset your circadian rhythm. Get up, get outside first thing in the morning and get some sunlight into your eyeballs. Bonus if you can, like, get a little exercise in, go for a walk outside, do your workout outside. When we rise with the sun and we go to bed with the sun, which is tricky right now at the time of this recording, because in New Zealand we are having super short days, and I doubt anyone's going to sleep at like 4 p.m. But if you can get up and you can get outside and you can get that sunlight the minute the sun rises, you're going to be telling your body basically that it's time to go. And then on the other end of the day, what we want to do is we start to dim those lights. We start to shut off our screen time, right? Which is this third photo. Start to remove screen time, start to take away all of that yellow light, right? All of that blue light. Like, we want to chill out. So ideally, we're not on our phone, we're not on our laptops, we're not working for sure, or like watching TV like half an hour, 45 minutes before bed. We're letting our brain settle into a parasympathetic state, right? The difference between sympathetic and parasympathetic: sympathetic is your fight or flight, you're like wired. Parasympathetic is you're calm, you're digesting. And that leads into the next point. Eat your meal 2 hours before you go to bed. Ideally, this can help you digest your food, and it's also going to help make sure that your energy, which is your meal, is being shuttled to the right places, and you're not like feeling the energy from that meal. When we eat, we are literally eating fuel, and we don't want to be fueling our body when we're about to turn it off, right? And then last but not least, really watch your caffeine intake. Ideally, we're not having any sort of caffeine like after midday, because the effects of caffeine really can bleed through for hours. The caveat there is that if you are training later in the afternoon or at night and you're like really focusing on your performance, caffeine's a stimulant that can help and aid in that performance. But for the sake of your fat loss and for the sake of your good sleep, I definitely recommend just cutting back on the caffeine altogether, and definitely not having any before or after midday. All right. Now, I was going to leave this training here, but I did actually want to touch on, like I said at the beginning, female hormones, because not enough women understand that their menstrual cycle can also really impact their sleep. The next month with my private clients, we're doing an entire month of training all on the menstrual cycle and its impact on our journey. So this is just a little taster. And if you're interested, you're always welcome to get in contact. But I wanted to bring this in because not enough women really understand the menstrual cycle and don't understand that week on week, things can be different. And again, I see it all the time that women will blame themselves for not being self-disciplined enough or, not trying hard enough, when in reality, they're not really understanding how their body works and they're kind of working against it sometimes. So real quick, your hormones obviously change throughout your menstrual cycle. And before and during menstruation, you may find that your sleep's affected for a couple of reasons. Progesterone is increased after ovulation until the late luteal phase, and we have an increase in body temperature, so much to the point that it can actually impact our sleep. A lot of women, one of their PMS symptoms can be insomnia, right? This is actually quite common. And if you are impacted by that symptom, then a really easy way to try and help that would be wear less clothing or take a blanket off, turn down the temperature of your room if it is air controlled, and try to create a bit of a cooler environment so that you're not overheating. This is really just the inflammation response to like getting ready to, shed an egg. So we have this increase in body temperature, and for some women, it can really impact them. So if you've ever wondered why you're like hot during some part of your cycle and then not, that's why. It genuinely is a very normal response, but there's ways that we can work with it. And you'll know if you're tracking your cycle, which I recommend every menstruating woman does. You absolutely want to be tracking your cycle so you know your patterns and okay, in like the 3 days before my period, I start to overheat or my sleep gets massively impacted, or I have these crazy dreams, or, something's happening there that you can then reverse engineer. Being aware is always the first key. And they've also found that there are altered levels of melatonin during the menstrual cycle. And melatonin is that essential hormone that helps to regulate our circadian rhythm and regular sleep patterns. So like I said, get out early in the morning, get that sunlight into your eyes, try to get to sleep with the sun where and if you can, right, at a reasonable hour, and your circadian rhythm is going to start to balance out, and that melatonin hormone is going to be really working in your favor. Cool. So I hope this was helpful. My inbox is always open if you've got questions, right? So if there's anything that you want to know or wasn't clear, drop it in the comments below, shoot me a message. Happy to help. But I hope that this was helpful and I hope you took something away from it. If you're still with me, drop a "I'm here" in the comments. And if you are, if you've dipped out early, you've dipped out early and you're not listening to this. So thank you. If you did join me, you stuck all the way through to the end, and I look forward to seeing you again next week. Take care, everyone. Have a beautiful Wednesday.